Let me start with something that may make people a little bit uncomfortable. I am not raising my daughters to be strong in the way society praises strength. I'm not raising them to overfunction, and I'm not raising them to carry emotional weight silently. I'm not raising them to endure relationships, systems, or expectations that cost them their softness. I'm raising my daughters to be soft and sovereign. Let's dig into it. Stay tuned. Welcome to the Secret Formula of Femininity for women who want to live a more feminine, fun, and fabulous life. I'm Dr. Nicole Monteiro, your host on this weekly journey to unlocking your inner radiance, nurturing fulfilling relationships, and becoming the best version of yourself. Welcome back to the Secret Formula of Femininity. I'm your host and guide on this journey to tapping into your feminine essence. And today I want to share with you why and how I am raising my girls to be emotionally literate, boundaried, self-honoring, and rooted in their femininity, not afraid of it. Because here's the truth that too many of us learned too late. Strong girls grow into exhausted women. Boundaried girls grow into fulfilled women. Today, I want to take you into the real lived lessons that I'm passing down, not from theory, but from motherhood, about feminine power, boundaries, and legacy. And I'm saying this from the perspective of being a psychologist, a professor, a wife, a mother, and a creator of the Boundaries to Bliss framework, which has helped me to rework my own boundaries. This episode isn't polished, it's not academic, it's not aspirational parenting content. This is legacy work. Because when you raise daughters, you realize something really quickly. You're not just shaping behavior, you are shaping belief systems, beliefs that they have about love, worth, rest, their voice, their boundaries, their femininity, safety, power, and whether or not we say it out loud, they are watching how we live. I remember an impactful moment for me, quiet but unforgettable. One of my daughters came home upset after school. She tried to speak up for herself with a friend and was told she was being, quote, too sensitive. I watched her face change. You know, that subtle tightening that children do when they start to pull their feelings inside. And instinctively, reflexively, I almost said the words that many of us were taught. Be strong. Don't let it bother you. Just ignore it. But something in me stopped. I remembered my own experience. I realized something devastating. That is how girls learn to abandon themselves. So instead, I sat down beside her and said, "Tell me what you felt." That makes sense that you would feel that way. You don't need to harden yourself to be respected. And in that moment, I made a promise, quietly but firmly. I will not raise daughters who think their emotions are liabilities, because that belief alone creates things like anxiety, people pleasing, emotional suppression, burnout, disconnection, and unhealthy attachment. If this is hitting you, it's probably because you learned the opposite. Here's a truth that I want to share with you, and I want to say it very clearly, and I know not everyone will agree. Teaching girls to be strong without teaching them boundaries is emotional neglect. Strength without self honoring becomes self erasure. And there's a powerful lesson in this. One of the first lessons I teach my daughters is this: your emotions are information, not inconveniences. We practice things like naming feelings, asking for comfort, taking space when overwhelmed, expressing disappointment without shame. And we do this because girls who are allowed to feel become women who trust themselves. And women who trust themselves don't stay where they're disrespected, don't confuse anxiety with attraction, don't silence intuition to keep the peace. A girl who is allowed to feel becomes a woman who knows when to leave, and that is any situation. I used to think parenting was mostly about teaching. Then I realized it's about embodiment. My daughters don't just listen to what I say about rest and boundaries. They watch. That's more powerful. They watch how I talk to myself, how I say no, how I rest without apology, how I regulate my stress, how I let my husband treat me, how I repair when I'm wrong and tell them I'm sorry. And here's a truth that I really had to sit with. You cannot raise daughters to live a life that you refuse to live yourself. So I've stopped glorifying exhaustion. I stopped martyring myself, saying I'm busy. I stopped apologizing for rest because martyrdom is not maternal wisdom. Here's another truth I want you to know. Your daughter does not need to see you depleted to learn resilience. She needs to see you regulated to learn safety. Let me be honest with you. There was a moment not that long ago when I caught myself repeating something I promised I wouldn't pass down. I was stressed, overstimulated, trying to juggle too much, doing too much. One of my daughters asked for something small, and I snapped. I didn't yell, but I dismissed what she was asking for. I saw her pull back, and in that moment, I felt it. It was that familiar guilt that we have as moms. So I did something different. I went back and I said, I'm sorry, I was overwhelmed, but that wasn't about you. You didn't do anything wrong. That was about mommy and how I handled it. And that repair mattered more than any perfection in my initial reaction. Because legacy is not about never messing up, it's about how we repair when we do mess up. Here's another lesson I'm teaching my daughters. Boundaries create feminine safety. I don't just teach my daughters politeness, I teach them boundaries. They know they don't owe hugs. They can say no without explanation. They can change their minds. They are allowed to take up space. Girls who learn boundaries early don't have to learn them later through trauma and drama. Say this with me, ladies, and say it internally. Boundaries are not walls, they are instructions for love and how people treat us. So, this is where it gets uncomfortable when I share with people how I talk to them about relationships. I don't raise my daughters to fear men, and I do not raise them to think that men are always right. I raise them to discern. We talk about consistency over intensity, safety over excitement, attention versus care. And I tell them, you never need to earn love through suffering because pain is not passion, anxiety is not chemistry, self abandonment is not devotion. We are not teaching struggle love over here. Here's another truth I want to share with you. If a girl is taught to be endlessly accommodating, she will grow into a woman who attracts entitlement. Yes, those emotionally immature, narcissistic people we talk about. And I know that we don't want that for our daughters. The third lesson I'm teaching them is that femininity is embodied, not performed. I don't teach femininity as appearance, just being silent, always being nice. I teach it as intuition, receptivity, discernment, emotional intelligence, softness with structure. Femininity is power that does not need to dominate. And I'm showing them that not just through my words, but through my actions and behaviors. All right, so let me answer some questions because I always get parenting questions, especially around girls and femininity. So many women think that femininity is disempowering. So let's dispel some myths and get into these questions. Question one is, how do you raise feminine daughters in a hard world? And I'll just say simply by teaching them that softness and competence can coexist. They're not mutually exclusive, it's not one or the other. And again, it's not femininity as performance, it's as connection to themselves. The next question is, what about discipline? Listen, softness is not permissiveness. That's where people get it mixed up. We're talking about healthy boundaries. It's regulated leadership. It's helping girls to see that they don't have to be hard in order to excel and in order to have inner and self discipline. The next question is, how do you balance independence and reliance? And the key word in our house is interdependence, not self sacrifice, not isolation. And this is what they see in our household, in my relationship with my husband, and also how we both treat them and how we expect them to treat us. We rely on each other as a family, and no one is dispensable or disposable. I want to share something really powerful with you that was shared with me. It's called the legacy visualization. I want you to imagine this with me. Picture your daughter or your younger self 20 years from now. What do you want her to remember? Do you want her to remember that you were exhausted or that you were present? That you endured or that you honored yourself? That you hardened or that you stayed soft with boundaries? Legacy is not what we say, it's what they absorb. And they absorb what they see, what we practice consistently, how our words match our actions, how we repair with them, how we treat them, how we correct them with love and tenderness, but how we make it clear that there are expectations of them. I recently put one of my daughters in etiquette class, and some people said to me, "Oh, that's so outdated. It's old fashioned." It will never be outdated to understand structure, protocol, how you behave in certain settings. And it doesn't mean that there can't be some changes or updates or shifts in those protocol, but it's so important as we raise our daughters and as we become examples to show them things like, how do you read the room? How do you learn to listen more than you talk? How do you insert yourself in a way that's powerful but it's not dominating? All of these are the soft skills of feminine energy. And this is the legacy that we need to leave for our girls. Is teaching them the art of subtlety, the art of nuance, the art of taking up space and how to do that in a way that aligns with who they are and the results that they want to get. We have to teach our girls not to be one trick ponies. What I see with the women who are taught to harden and be exhausted and only think about being strong and resilient is they don't know how to play any other parts. They don't know how to fall back. They don't know how to receive because they've only been taught to do that one thing. Now, absolutely, if there are situations where our girls need to know how to stand strong and stand firm, they need to know that. But they also need discernment to know when it's not necessary, to know that there are times that you don't have to overreact. You don't have to jump the gun and make assumptions. You can use your discernment, use your observation, use your communication, and use your emotional intelligence to solve the problem or deal with the situation. This is the legacy that we want to leave for our daughters. When I hear people saying that the younger generation is better off if they just abandon relationships, I absolutely disagree. Healthy relationships are the key to life. It doesn't mean that everybody has to get married as soon as they finish high school, but to teach girls to be afraid of men, to disavow relationships altogether, to not build families, what are we really teaching girls when we do that? We're saying that you can only survive and be happy and fulfilled if you're independent. We're not teaching them the skills to discern. We're just saying throw the baby and the bathwater out. Let's not pass on this legacy of trauma, of broken relationships, of extreme reactions and wanting to isolate just because we saw poor examples. Let's rebuild our trust in ourselves and teach our daughters not only how to trust themselves, but how to trust themselves to be in relationship, how to learn how to trust in a relationship, and how to know when to move on. That's what I call feminine balance. If this episode stirred something in you, not just as a mother, but as a woman, I invite you into the Boundaries to Bliss inner circle. This is where women practice boundaries, heal bad conditioning, model feminine leadership, raise emotionally safe children, and live with softness and structure. You cannot pass down what you haven't practiced. And in the inner circle, we practice together. The link is in the show notes. Listen, raising daughters with feminine power is not about perfection. Lord knows I am not perfect. It's about presence, repair, boundaries, and courage. And if no one has told you this, it's not too late even for you. It's not too late to give yourself what you're wanting to give your daughters now. Until next time, stay soft, stay boundaried, and stay powerful. I'll see you in the next episode. I'm Dr. Nicole.